Real Virginia is proudly produced by the Virginia Farm Bureau Federation. Since 1926, Farm Bureau has been working to preserve Virginia farms and our rural heritage. Visit our website at vafb.com.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Real Virginia, a show about Virginia agriculture and the people who produce the wonderful local products we enjoy. Brought to you by the Virginia Farm Bureau. From time to time, farm animals need special medical care. This week, we'll ride along with a large animal veterinarian. Chef Tammy Brawley has another delicious grilled beef recipe for us, and watermelon season is almost here. We'll visit some growers to see how their crop is coming along.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia. Home in my heart always.
Welcome back to Real Virginia, everyone. We're coming to you this week from Sacred Acres Alpaca Farm in Fluvanna County. Across the nation and here in Virginia, a shortage of large animal vets continues. Those involved treat the job as a calling as much as their profession, like Dr. Melinda McCall, who provides animal care for farmers here in Central Virginia.
Taking care of large, ornery animals is all in a day's work for Dr. Melinda McCall, a veterinarian specializing in providing care to farm animals, and her assistant, Becca Ritchie. This cow is being vaccinated for pink eye, a common condition for cows thanks to the flies that like to congregate around their faces. This cattle farming family in Louisa County is one of Dr. McCall's regular clients. In addition to the pink eye vaccine, they're also vaccinating these cows for blackleg and adding a dewormer to help control parasites. The family has also asked them to look at this young goat born blind.
We're trying to decide what's the most humane thing to do for her, because it'd be hard for her to live in a general, herd of goats. So we're just making sure that she's okay otherwise, because sometimes when animals have a congenital deformity, they have more than one.
McCall has written a memoir about her career as a production animal veterinarian, which will be available in August. Driving Home Naked and Other Misadventures of a Country Veterinarian gets its name after a cow's womb became dislodged out of her body. The procedure was very messy by the time McCall was done.
The only thing I knew to do was just to strip, and even at that it was kind of gross sitting on the seat. But I pretty much came home in a pair of rubber boots.
Okay.
And that was it. And unfortunately I got thirsty. I was so thirsty I was about to die, but I knew I couldn't go in a store, so I drove through a drive-through. And I'll just leave it at that, so you can read the book and figure out what happens.
Our next stop is an alpaca farm in Fluvanna County. The next time you're getting a hard time from your dentist about flossing, just know it could be worse. Some of the teeth on these alpacas are getting too long, to the point where they can hurt themselves or others. After fixing up the alpacas, it's on to a group of sheep in another part of Fluvanna County.
All right.
It's all part of a busy day for a large animal vet.
Certainly people don't do this job for the money, because we work for people who are making a living. So our prices, we're working in a supply and demand market. We can't just increase our prices if we know people will pay for it, So our prices have to remain, in essence, with the market for the calf prices and the fleece prices and the wool prices and all those things. So, yes, I could have made a lot more money doing most anything else, but this is what I like to do. It did take me a long time to pay my student loans. I just finished paying the student loans at age 42.
Wow.
And that's a long time. So you have to love it.
The farmers she visits also find ways to show their appreciation.
The farmers, they take care of me. They give us eggs quite a bit. They give us hamburger. They're definitely not going to let us starve, so that's always really good. And they knit us hats and gloves, and so we're not going to get cold or starved.
There haven't been enough large animal veterinarians in Virginia and the nation to meet the needs of farmers for decades. Providing medical care for household pets is much easier and more profitable. So traveling veterinarians like McCall are hard to find. The last stop of the day was at a farm in Albemarle County to remove a cancerous lesion from a cow's eyelid.
It's this one right here. See that little growth that's on his eye?
Oh yeah, it's a little red.
Yeah, so hopefully that's on the little flap that's part of his third eyelid, and I can just numb it and take the scissors and go up under there and take it without taking his whole eyeball, hopefully.
Let's just say it worked. The cow kept its eye, but our broadcast partners would probably flag us if we showed Dr. McCall performing that procedure. It's all in a day's work for a veteran veterinarian. In Fluvanna County, I'm Burke Moeller reporting.
A 2021 review by the U.S. Department of Agriculture found that more than 500 counties haven't had a farm animal vet for at least 5 years. Only 3 to 4% of new veterinary school graduates have entered food animal related practices over the past 20 years. Since large animal vets are on the front line of preventing livestock disease outbreaks and conducting food safety inspections, the shortage affects all Americans. More financial aid for veterinary students who choose a large animal practice is one possible solution.
I'm Mark Viette. Coming up on In the Garden, I'm going to talk about making more of your favorite plants that are in your garden. Stay with us.
Farming is a rewarding way of life, but it can also be full of challenges. If you or someone you know is struggling, call or text the AgriStress helpline at 833-897-2473. It offers 24/7 access to professionals who can support someone in need and help find mental health services in your community. Please make the call, because healthy farms depend on healthy farm families. That's 833-897-2474.
New trees and shrubs can be expensive to buy. Mark Viette shows us a technique to divide larger plantings in the garden.
This is my favorite crepe myrtle, of course. If I had to pick one, it's Sioux, S-I-O-U-X, and Sioux is my favorite. It's one of the longest blooming crepe myrtles that there is. And here is a volunteer plant that came up on its own from a root, and there's a root right here. And this root right here at the end of this tool is coming from the mother crepe myrtle. Now, the question was, can I transplant it? Well, probably not initially, because this crepe myrtle is relying on the main root from the mother crepe myrtle. And you want this crepe myrtle to produce its own roots, or a better root system. So, first of all, what I'm going to do is come in and do a little bit of pruning, cut it back. That'll help it produce more roots. And then what you really need to do is sever the main root on this crepe myrtle. So what I'm going to do is just lightly dig right around here, just so I can see what I'm going to sever. And I've exposed the root. Now there's a couple ways to sever it. You can use a handsaw for a larger root, but this root is not that big. And I'm going to come in with the shovel and cut this root right here. And I'll probably come in with the loppers. So I'm going to come right in here, cut that, and maybe cut this little one here, this little one here. And next year, I can dig and transplant and have another great crepe myrtle called Sue and add it to my garden. I want to propagate more of these boxwood. These boxwood were huge. They came all the way out to where I'm standing, and they were half again as tall. So I pruned them back, but didn't really realize that at the time is that some of these long branches layered or tip layered on their own. They were laying on the ground, little soil got on top of them, and they started producing roots. And you'll see some of these boxwoods right in front of me here. Quite a few. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I can propagate some of my own boxwood right in front. Now these boxwoods are still attached to the mother plant. And I just pruned this just a couple minutes ago. And as you see, they don't have a lot of roots. This one here only has one root. So I need to get these to produce a few more roots. Couple things you can do. You can take a shovel and right at the base here, this stem is attached to the mother plant. I'm just going to come in and root prune it. Next year, I can now dig these up and transplant them anywhere else in my garden. I'm Mark Viette. Join me next time in the garden.
For more garden tips, go to inthegardenradio.com.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Coming up on Heart of the Home, grilled ribeye with a shiitake beurre blanc. We hope you'll stay with us.
Our cow, she walks into the barn and she gets milked. Milk's taken from her and put through a chiller. And that milk's taken from body temperature of a cow, which is about 102.5, and dropped to 35 degrees and put straight onto a tractor trailer. And it goes straight to the plant the next day. So most of the milk that's sitting on your store shelves is probably less than 48 hours old. And that's a pretty good testament to how efficient we are.
Tired of the same old burgers and steak on the grill? Chef Tammy Brawley shares a delicious grilled beef recipe featuring Virginia mushrooms in the heart of the home.
Hi, I'm Chef Tammy Brawley with the Green Kitchen. Welcome to Heart of the Home. Today I'm going to show you guys, we're going to do a delicious grilled steak with a shiitake beurre blanc. Beurre blanc is basically a French term for butter and cream, we'll say. We've got a pan here that we're going to melt some butter. You can certainly use oil if you want to. We're doing the shiitakes first. You can use oil, you can use a combination of the two if you wish. It's really up to you. If you do use oil and butter, the oil is there to actually keep the butter from burning. But I love the way the butter reacts with the mushrooms. So I'm just going to use butter today. We're going to melt the butter. We're going to saute the mushrooms. We are using shiitake caps. If you have other mushroom preferences, then feel free to use them. I love shiitakes. I think they're nice and rich. What we're going to do is we're going to add the shiitake caps. We're going to let those get just a little bit soft. You might notice that we're not breaking them up, we're not chopping them up. You can if you want to. I think it makes a delicious presentation with the cream sauce at the end. So I'm going to go ahead and dump in a little garlic for this. More garlic the better as far as I'm concerned. For about half a pound of mushrooms, maybe a half a tablespoon or so of garlic. They're going to take just a couple of minutes to kind of break down. They will release water, as all mushrooms do, but that will evaporate. As they do start to soften, you want to go ahead and hit it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Now you might think that you need to add more liquid at this point to the mushrooms. You really don't. They're going to release on their own. They're going to become soft, and we don't really want them mushy for when they go with the cream and the butter sauce, the beurre blanc. All right, our mushrooms have become soft and they smell very garlicky, which is what we want. We're going to leave those over to the side. And now we're going to create our beurre blanc sauce. This is a sauce that you need a little bit of patience for, because you want to incorporate butter and wine and shallots and lemon juice all together, and you wouldn't want it to quote-unquote break. So we're hoping it doesn't break today. We've got our burner on here, and we're going to add a little bit of oil. We're going to add shallots. I've just slivered them little slices. You can chop them if you wish. I personally don't want to do all that work. And now we're going to add about a half a cup of wine or so. We're going to let that come to a boil. And we're also going to go ahead and add some heavy cream. And we're going to add some lemon juice. Probably about a tablespoon or so. Checking to make sure I don't squeeze any seeds out there. And now we're going to whisk it and bring it up to a nice temperature. When you start to see the bubbles around the side, it's pretty much ready. You don't have to let it come to a full boil. And now you want to start adding a lot of butter, I have to say. And we're going to do a tablespoon at a time. If you overload it with the butter or try to add it all, it's not going to come together. So you really want to slowly add your butter. This is the point that you want to be careful that it doesn't break. And when we say break, you would be able to tell, because it would have bubbles and it would not look like it was a cohesive sauce. Now while that's coming up to temperature and melting my butter, I'm going to go ahead and start my grill pan, and we're going to grill a steak. I happen to have a nice fat ribeye today. We've already salted it and peppered it. Anytime you grill a beef, you always want to let it sit at room temperature for about an hour or so before you add it to a grill. You wouldn't want to add a cold meat to a hot pan because it will stick. So we're going to go ahead and add our steak to this burner. All right, the steak is starting to sizzle. Now something this thick is going to take a little bit to cook, and it depends on how you like your steak. This is probably about 3/4 of an inch. I like to do about 5 minutes on each side for an inch steak. I like mine rare. You might like yours a little bit more done. If you do, then just leave it on the grill longer. What you don't want to do though when it comes to grilling is you don't want to become flip happy, as we call it, and that's put something on the grill and then immediately start flipping it. You want to let it release on its own. More of the cooking time takes place on the first side than it does on the second. This sauce is actually coming together quite nicely. You want to make sure you do reduce that heat. You don't want to maintain it at a boil. I'm going to continue to add the remaining parts of my butter. This is a very rich sauce. This is not something I would do on a Monday night at home. This is a specialty dinner or a birthday dinner, a celebration dinner if you would. The steak is coming along nicely. It's going to almost be ready to turn. I'm going to check our steak. Oh, yeah. Going to go ahead and flip the steak. You can see it's got nice caramelization marks on it. And I'm going to come back to the sauce. I know it needs a little salt and pepper. I'm going to do a little coarse salt, a little coarse ground pepper there. We're going to stir this up. I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. And now what I'm going to do while the steak is finishing, I'm going to come back and add our sauteed mushrooms. Oh, yeah. You had me at cream and butter. All right, the sauce is actually off, so I know it's going to stay warm and be just fine. Our steak is not done yet, depending on, again, how you like yours. I do like mine rare, but I know that this is not quite there yet. You can feel a steak either with tongs or a spatula. All right. I do just want to check the other side, but I know it's not done yet. Just about. Just going to kind of hold it up on the side and let the ends sear a little bit. Now, some people would be tempted to cut off all that fat before they cooked it, but I don't do that. You don't have to eat the fat, but you want to cook it with the fat because it does certainly give it a lot of flavor. So we've got that. I'm going to turn it over just for a hair. I want to see what the other side looks like. And we are just about done. So I'm actually going to put this onto a plate. We're going to top it with that beautiful shiitake beurre blanc. All right, we have a nice rare ribeye that's been grilled with just salt and pepper. We have a shiitake beurre blanc that we're going to top that with. Wow, what a great lunch. And there you have it, grilled ribeye with a shiitake beurre blanc sauce. I'm Chef Tammy Brawley from the Green Kitchen. Join us next time on Heart of the Home.
Recipes from the Heart of the Home can be found on the Virginia Farm Bureau website at vafb.com/recipes, as well as on Chef Tammy Brawley's website at greenkitchenrichmond.com.
Despite a slowly shrinking herd size, beef cattle continue to be one of Virginia's top farm commodities. In 2022, there were 1.39 million head of cattle and calves in the Old Dominion. 5 years earlier, there were 1.48 million cattle and calves in the state. Rockingham County is the largest cattle community with 100,000 head, followed by Augusta County with 97,000 head. By contrast, there are only 100 head of cattle in Virginia Beach. In 2021, Virginia cattle farmers earned more than $381 million from the sale of their beef animals.
Few fruits suit the summertime better than a chilled watermelon. Norm Hyde reports that if you're patient, you may be able to bring home a local treat for your next picnic.
The first thing you need to learn about raising watermelons is they need a lot of room.
Each watermelon's going to take up about 24 to 26 square feet. You know, some of your smaller ones you can get on maybe 18 square feet. But when you're talking about a garden, that's a pretty big amount of space.
Luke Holman raises only melons and watermelons for his customers, which include local stores and farmers markets. He enjoys the challenge of being a farmer, but says he has a very important partner, the honeybee.
Everything you see here is dependent on a tiny little insect visiting a male flower and depositing the pollen from the male flower to the female ovary. And it doesn't have to happen just once. Like I said, you need a minimum of 8 visits to that female flower to even get a fruit set. Now that's on seeded watermelons. On seedless watermelons, you need many, many more. Sometimes it's 16 to about 20, 22 visits to get enough pollen for that female plant to set that fruit and to get a normal fruit set.
Chris Drake and Southampton County started raising watermelons decades ago to have a different crop than those of surrounding corn, cotton, and peanut farmers. Good sandy soil and hot sunny weather are key components to a successful watermelon harvest. Unfortunately, the spring of 2023 was cool and damp in Virginia.
As with any crop, we don't want 100-degree days. That's not good for anything, but we want sun and we want high 80s, low 90s. We want typical summertime temperatures. So most of your watermelons are grown in areas where it's a southern climate, basically.
A watermelon flower will open at sunrise, and they typically close up by noon. I mean, if it's a really hot day, typically once you start getting over 90 degrees, those flowers are going to close up. So they're only receptive to pollination for 4 hours, 5 hours in the morning. So if you have a foggy morning, if you have a cold morning, a wet morning, a misty morning, a cloudy morning, a windy morning, any of these factors that prevents bees from flying or native pollinators from flying the fields, you're not going to get pollination.
Virginia farmers raise watermelons on 338 farms, covering 773 acres. That means it's not a major crop in the Old Dominion. Thanks to many challenges, it can be tough to make a profit with watermelons.
Once the vines get going and once they get to growing, they're actually a little easier to manage, but there's a lot of diseases and a lot of pests that can damage watermelons. Then when you get to the harvest time of it, that's a whole nother issue. You can also have, fruit scarring and fruit blistering, and the sun can get to them. So there's a lot of challenges that can arise during the growing season, and a lot of things that can happen to make your product not marketable. So it's a long process. It's about a 90 to 100 day process to go from seed to harvest. Our soils also tend to produce a sweeter watermelon because they tend to get a little drought stressed at some periods of time, and drought stress as watermelons get mature will actually lead to a higher sugar content.
Like many Virginia growers, Drake and Holman have developed their own network of buyers to increase their slim profit margins instead of selling to big grocery store chains. Harvesting watermelons can be heavy labor, so that's another challenge and expense. Every year, consumers have their own challenge, how to pick a ripe watermelon at the market or store. Both growers agree your best tip is the color of the rind.
If you look under the belly of a watermelon, once it starts turning a kind of a pale yellow color versus a white color, white underneath it, typically it's not going to be ripe. If it starts turning yellow or a more prominent yellow, it's going to be generally riper. And watermelons that have stripes, also typically when the stripes start to break and there's a clear definition between the stripe and the non-stripe, that usually will indicate maturity, but every variety is different.
People need to know that when you go to the grocery store, watermelons per pound are the cheapest fruit you can buy. So it's the biggest bang for your buck. It's super healthy for you, packed with lycopene, and 90% of watermelon is water. So it's totally refreshing. I mean, it's a perfect summertime treat, and it's the cheapest treat you can buy. An ice cold watermelon versus an ice cold drink, I'll take a watermelon every day.
Each year, the July 4th weekend is the biggest sale date for watermelon growers. Thanks to weather delays, it looks like this year most Virginians will have to settle for a picnic treat grown farther south. But there's nothing like a locally grown melon for a summertime treat, and Virginia watermelons will be here very soon. Reporting from Richmond, Virginia, I'm Norm Hyde.
We're so glad you could join us this week to celebrate all the bounty Virginia has to offer. From your kitchen to your home and garden to our beautiful wide open spaces, we're proud to say that this is real Virginia. For everyone at the Virginia Farm Bureau, thanks for watching. Make it a great week.
Home will always be Virginia, between the Blue Ridge and Chesapeake Bay, Atlantic to Appalachia, home in my heart, oh